Right, student, good morning. Today we are going to discuss chapter 11. It will be the final chapter in our trimester. Right, so chapter 11, you can see we have two topics. One is cost of capital. The other one is working capital management. So again, I like to show you the relation among different chapter. So for me, relation is important. That means I can link different chapters together. So in chapter 10, we discussed the NPV. I hope you remember the net present value, right? And to calculate NPV, we need two input variables. One is future cash flows. Right? We have multiple cash flows. The other variable is K, cost of capital. All right. So in chapter 10, we give you cash flows and the cost of capital directly. Then we do the NPV. For me, it's easier. All right. But in practice, we need to estimate the future cash flow. This is challenge. All right. If you are interested in this issue, we have FINAN101. You will learn more about this issue. All right. For example, our new medical project, right? To make a decision, we need to do the NPV. Right? So estimation of future cash flow is not easy. All right. Another variable we need to discuss is K, cost of capital. This is another key variable for NPV. In chapter 11, we are going to have some discussion on cost of capital, right? This is the first topic, cost of capital. The other topic in chapter 11 is working capital management. So when I think working, that means short term. Right? So you can see so far in our previous discussion, our focus is value of the money. For me, it's a long term. That means we focus on long term. Right? We use the value of money. Our focus is value of money. Working capital management, on the other hand, our focus is the timing of the money. In the finance, we not only focus on value of money, but also the timing of the money. For me, it's an interesting issue, because we want to receive our money as early as possible and delay our payment as late as possible. Right? So for this topic, we have the turnover, inventory turnover, account receivable turnover, account payable turnover. For me, it's an interesting topic. It's a daily finance decision, short term. Since a time limitation, I will skip working capital management. I just let you know this issue. Right? Again, you can enroll in our 200 and 300 level paper. You will understand this issue more. All right. So our final chapter, we discussed cost of capital, and the cost of capital is key variable, one of the key variable in our budget valuation. Right. Okay. So in the chapter outline, we have 6 topics for this chapter. But like I say, working capital management, I will skip this one. Right. So in our class, we will discuss the 5 topics. So today, I hope to cover the first 3 topics. So what is cost of capital? Why cost of capital is important? Right. This is our first topic. Okay, why cost of capital is important? I hope students now you know the answer. So knowing our cost of capital can help us determine our required return for capital budgeting project. Right? So capital budgeting, like our NPV, right? Net present value. And I know return to an investor, it sends us the cost to the company. So return, in finance, return and the cost, they are the same. Return is to investor, cost is to the company, right? And when I see the return, I know another variable, risk. Return and risk will go together. So we know that return earned on asset depends on the risk of those assets, right? So the cost of capital provides us an indication of how the market view the risk of our asset. So to calculate the cost of capital, we use the market data, right, to calculate the cost of capital. So the cost of capital is the external return in the market. That means if you invest the money in the market, the return you can receive. This is a cost of capital, right? So let me review our chapter 10, right? So our IRR, internal rate of return. So internal rate of return is internal return of the project. That means you invest your money in the project can provide you the return. This is internal rate of return. Cost of capital, on the other hand, is the external return in the market, right? So you invest your money in the market can provide you a return, external return. This is our K, cost of capital. And we know the decision rule. IRR higher than K, we accept the project. IRR is lower than K, we reject the project, right? So K, cost of capital, is the external return in the market, all right? And when I see the return, I know return will go with the risk. High risk, high return. Low risk, low return. All right. So this is about concept. About the detail, we will show you how to calculate the cost of capital. Right. So this is a concept. I know return and risk go together. So next slide. So what is the cost of capital? So cost of capital for a company is a weighted average of the cost of different types of financing used by a company. So you know, the company, they have different types of capital, right? So if we have different type of capital and we need one measurement, we use a weighted average. For example, here, with equity and the bond. So the company can use equity and the bond to finance their asset, right? So we have cost of equity, cost of bond. Then we add it up. How we add it up? We use a weighted average, all right? So the weight, what's the weight? Weights are the proportion of the total company value represented by the different type of financing. So we have a weight, the weight on equity and weight on bond or debt, right? And finally, cost of capital. Cost of capital, the cost to company is a return to investor. So let me show you my handwritten note to summarize the concept in a easy way, all right? So cost of capital. The company will have different types of capital. In particular, we have debt or equity, all right? For example, my family, all right? For me, family is a business, right? So I have the capital budgeting decision, like I need to buy the house, right? To buy the house, my capital, I have capital from debt, house loan, or equity, my own money, equity, all right? Then I need to consider cost of debt, cost of equity. And for cost is return, right? It depends. Cost to company is return to investor. So cost of debt is return to debt investor. Cost of equity is return to equity investor. So after we have the cost of each type of capital, then we need to know the weight. Right? So consider the asset, the total capital, 100%. Then we have the weight on debt, weight on equity, right? Adding up 100%. All right. So in chapter 11, we give you the weight directly, but in practice, the company or the company manager, they need to decide the weight on debt and the weight on equity. Since the time limitation, we don't have, we will skip chapter 12. So chapter 12 is to discuss the capital structure. The issue is about the percentage or the weight on debt and the weight on equity. All right. So this is another important issue. All right. But here we skip this topic. So in our calculation, I will give you the weight on debt, weight on equity. But in practice, the company need to decide the weight, all right, on each type of financing. Right. So of course they consider the cost of debt, cost of equity. Right. So on this slide, we give you the formula for the WACC. WACC WACC is a weighted average cost of capital. All right. So we consider a general case. So K1, K2, K3 to Kn, they are cost of capital, right? So K1, cost of capital 1, K2, cost of capital 2, K3, cost of capital 3, and so on. And then we have the X is a weight, right? The weight, X1, weight on capital 1, X2, weight on capital 2, and so on. After we have the weight and the cost of capital adding up, we use weighted average. Right, so let's use an example. Assume the total asset is $4 million, and this company used 0.1 million for debt, 3.7 million for from equity. Right, so then you have the weight here. Right, so 4 million, the total asset, and the weight of debt is the debt value divided by the total asset. Here is the number, 7.5%. Weight on equity value divided by total asset. This is weight on equity, and you can see the sum of the weight equal to 1 or 100%. All right. So in chapter 11, we give you the weight directly. However, in practice, the company need to decide the weight. All right. They need to decide the optimal weight for the company. Right. But here we give you the weight directly. To decide the optimal, that means you need to consider the cost of the capital, right? Cost of debt, cost of equity. Then you need to do the trade-off decision, right? How much debt, how much equity, right? Okay, so this is our first topic. We finished the definition of the cost of capital. So let me review the key concept for you. So what is cost of capital and why cost capital is important? So what is cost of capital? So for me, cost of capital is a required return to investor. Right? So cost to company is return to investor. Required return is from an investor point of view. Cost of capital is the same return, but from the firm's point of view. Right? So why cost of capital is important? Because our NPV and IRR will need the cost of capital. So neither the NPV rule nor the IRR rule can be implemented without knowledge of a project discount plan. All right. So cost of capital is a key variable for our capital budgeting, right? And cost to the company is a return to the investor. So in the following discussion, we are going to show you how to calculate the cost of debt and the cost of the equity. Again, the point is cost is return. Right? Cost to the company is return to the investor. All right. So next slide, cost of debt. So cost of debt is the return to the debt investor. So you can see, next slide, cost of debt. Company generally use long-term debt to finance their non-current, that means long-term asset. So we usually focus on cost of long-term debt or bond. The cost of debt is the return, required return on the company debt. And required return is best estimated by computing the year to maturity or the YTM on the existing long-term debt. So I hope you remember the YTM. We discussed the YTM in chapter 8, bond valuation. So year to maturity. Year is a terminology in finance. It's return, percentage return. All right, the percentage return of the bond. To maturity, that means bond investor buy the bond today, then hold the bond until the maturity. Right? This is our YTM. Right? So let me use my handwritten note to discuss the concept further. So I'd like to address short-term versus long-term. Right? So this is our balance sheet. Right? So balance sheet, we have the asset. It's about how the money is used on current asset, long-term asset, or fixed asset. How the money is raised by current liability or short-term debt, long-term debt, and equity. All right. And I know in finance, we have the match, meaning short-term, match short-term, long-term, but match long-term. Right. Example like a family. Family is a business, right? So for me, I use my credit card, short-term debt, to finance my short-term asset. For example, inventory. I go for shopping every week, right, to buy the grocery, inventory, short-term asset. So I short-term, match short-term. For my house loan, I use a house loan and my equity, long-term capital, to finance the long-term asset, for example, a house. All right, so I can see short-term to short-term, long-term to long-term. All right. So let's go back to our PowerPoint slide. So long-term debt, for example, a bond, the cost of the debt is the return on the bond. Return on the bond is YTM, year to maturity. So next slide, we give you an example how to calculate the cost of debt. So this our example is a bond, a 10-year bond, face value 1,000, was issued 5 years ago. Right? That means 10-year bond. The bond was issued 5 years ago. So time to maturity, 5 years. 5 years. So the bond has 5 years remaining before it matures. If the bond has an annual coupon rate of 7%, pay coupon interest semi-annually, and is currently selling for this amount, right? Then what is the cost of the debt? Right? And I know the cost of the debt is a bond's YTM. To calculate the bond's YTM, I know I need to hand draw the timeline and adjust the data according to payment frequency. All right, so let me show you how I do that. All right, so this is my way to do that. So the bond, time to maturity, 5 years. But number of periods will be 5 times 2. The reason, semi-annually. All right, 5 times 2. Coupon rate, 7%. Again, 7% divided by 2, semi-annually. 1,000 face value times 7%, 0.07 divided by 2, $35. This is our coupon payment every period. Face value 1,000. Bond price today, this amount. Then I draw the timeline. Number of period 10. Coupon payment $35 every period. On the maturity date, coupon payment plus face value payment, the lump sum payment, right? Bond price today, this amount, right? Then we want to know the I variable, right? So you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variables in the bond variation. Please allow me to skip the bond variation formula. For me, it's not necessary to remember the formula. What I remember is timeline, and I know I have 5 variables in the bond variation. Given any 4 of them, we may know the 5th, right? So next slide. So this is our bond variation formula, all right? So we have bond price, this amount, face value 1,000, coupon payment $35, number of period 10. Then we want to know the I variable, right? So you can use trial and error or financial calculator to solve for I variable. I don't recommend trial and error. It's very time consuming, all right? So we use a financial calculator and Excel. And we have the number for you. This is the 3%. I is 3%. But 3% is not our final answer. 3% is semi-annual rate. So you have to convert your semi-annual rate to annual rate or 1 year rate. The answer is 6%. 3% times 2, right? Excel is helpful, or you can use Excel to do the calculations. Again, you can see the 5 input variable here. Here as note, PV is negative, right? So it's a cash outflow. So we buy the bond today, cash outflow. Then we use a rate formula in the Excel. Right? This is the number, 3%. But our year to maturity, 1 year rate is 3% times 2. Right, 3% times 2. Right, so I hope you are okay with the calculation. Again, for me, timeline could be the most important step when you do the finance question. All right. So next point, next slide. After we have cost of debt, the next slide we discuss the issue of tax. Right, tax is a payment to the government. So we are going to discuss the tax and the cost of the debt. So it's very important that you understand one additional concept concerning the cost of debt. So in Australia, including New Zealand, company can deduct interest payment for tax purpose. All right. So in other words, every dollar a company pays in interest reduce its taxable income by $1. Right. So here I give you the taxable income. So taxable income is earning, EBIT, earning before interest and tax minus interest. Right. So company can deduct interest payment from their taxable income. So therefore, the after-tax cost of debt is here. So in our previous discussion, we have cost of debt, but this is the pre-tax cost of debt. After-tax cost of debt is pre-tax cost of debt times 1 minus T. T is the tax rate. Right. So debt has a benefit. The benefit is taxed. All right. So because the company can deduct the interest payment for test purpose. Right? So now you know the test, and in our cost of capital, we should use after tax cost of debt. So next slide, we consider the general case, different debts. So company will use different debt. So if we have different debt, then we use the average cost of debt. So let me address this issue. For many companies have several different debt issues outstanding at any particular point in time. The pre-tax cost of bond as today is the annual yield on those bonds. The weight for different type of debt. Then we calculate the overall average cost of debt by calculating the weighted average of the cost. Finally, the after-tax cost of debt is the pre-tax cost of debt times 1 minus T. Right. So for me, the sentence could be too long. We use an example to show you how we do with different debt. All right. So this is our example. So consider a company. The company has two debts. All right. One is bond. The company issued a corporate bond. The other one is debt, bank debt. So the company borrowed the money from the bank. Right. So we have the weight. Right. This is the weight on bond, weight on bank debt. Right. So total debt is here. The bond value 25 million, bank debt 5 million. We have the weight on corporate bond and the weight on bank debt. All right, this is the number. Okay, again, the sum of the weight equal to 1. Right. Then we calculate the weighted average cost of debt. This is a pre-tax cost of debt. So we have the weight, we have the cost of each type of debt. Right. So we have the weighted average. This is the number. So after we have the weighted average, our final step is after tax cost of debt is here. So we have this additional term, 1 minus T. T is our tax rate. All right. So I have a note here. So I use the two-step process. If the company has different type of debt, then step 1 is to calculate weighted average cost of debt. Right. So again, we use a weighted average to add it up. Step 2, after tax cost of debt. That means we add this additional term, 1 minus T. All right. Okay, we finished the cost of debt. Again, let me review the key concept for you. Yeah. So cost of debt, I use a KD, cost of debt, is the year to maturity, YTM of the bond. Right? The cost of debt is equal to year to maturity because it's a market rate of interest that would be required on new debt issue. Right? So for me, cost of debt is return. For bond, the return is year to maturity, YTM. Right? Then for debt or for bond, we need to consider tax. So in our calculation, we have the pre-tax cost of debt. After tax cost of debt is pre-tax cost of debt times 1 minus T. So don't forget 1 minus T in your cost of debt. Right? Okay, so the third topic is cost of equity. This is our final topic for today's lecture. So we have debt. Now we have equity. So how to calculate calculate the cost of equity. Okay, our slide. The cost of equity for a company is a weighted average of costs of different type of share. So please refer to our share chapter. Right? You know we have preference share and ordinary share. So again, the idea is weighted average. We have cost of preference share, cost of ordinary share, then add it up using weighted average. All right. So in order to calculate the cost of equity for this company, we need to know how to calculate the cost of both ordinary share and the preference share. And again, cost of share is return to share investor. Right. So later we are going to show you how to calculate return of the share. And return of the share is the cost of the share. All right. And we have two types of share, preference share and ordinary share. So next slide. Ordinary share, cost of equity, ordinary share. The particular approach that a financial analyst chooses will depend on what information is available, how reliable the analyst believes it in. So we are going to show you two methods to calculate cost of ordinary share. Method 1, Kaplan model. We discussed Kaplan model in chapter 7, right? So this is our Kaplan model. In this equation, the expected return on an asset is a linear function of systematic risk associated with that asset. So this is our Kaplan model. ERI is the expected return. RF, risk-free rate, plus beta. Beta is a measure of systematic risk. ERM is market return. Minus RF, this is a market risk premium, right? So this is our Kaplan model. Please refer to our chapter 7. So you can use Kaplan model to calculate the expected return of ordinary share, right? We use the systematic risk beta to measure the expected return. So next slide, we give you an example to use the Kaplan model. Suppose your company has the beta 0.58, risk-free rate 6.1, expected market risk premium 8.6%. What is the cost of equity, cost of the ordinary share using the Kaplan model? So you can see the cost of ordinary share, OS, is risk-free rate plus beta times market risk premium. And this is the number, right? So for me, the calculation should be right, should be okay. I hope you remember the Kaplan model. By the way, the Kaplan model is a very important model in finance, right? Professor Mark Weiss has a Kaplan model. Professor Sharp has developed this Kaplan model, and then he received the Nobel Prize in the finance, right? So for me, it's very important, but he quantify the return and risk. We all know high risk, high return, low risk, low return, but they quantify the relation. So it's very important model in finance. Okay, so method 2. So method 1 is a Kaplan model. Method 2 is our constant growth dividend model or dividend growth model, the DGM model. Please refer to our chapter 9. All right. So in the DGM model, we review the DGM model here. So if dividend received by the owner of ordinary share are expected to grow at a constant rate in perpetuity, then the value of the share today can be calculated using the following equation. So I hope you remember our DGM model. So share price today, P0 is D1 over R minus G. Right? R is a return return of the share. And R is our K. Return is the cost. All right, so cost of ordinary share. So let me show you my handwritten note. So I hope you remember the DGM model, right? And I know R, return, is a cost. So I can rewrite the DGM model as here to have the R. So R will be D1 over P0 plus G. Right? It's just a simple rewriting, right? It's not difficult. So R is here. And I know return is the cost, right? So return is the cost. So R is K. So the cost of ordinary share will be here. All right. This is our method 2, DGM model. So cost of ordinary share is D1 over P0 plus G. All right, so this is our method 2. Oh. So next slide, we apply the DGM model. So suppose your company is expected to pay dividend $1.5 per share next year. So this is our D1. And there has been a steady growth in dividend of 5.1% per year. So G, dividend growth rate, 5.1%. Market, and the market expects that to continue. So that means perpetuity, right? The current share price is $25. That is our P0. What is the cost of equity or ordinary share? Right? So I use the DGM model. Cost of ordinary share is D1 over P0 plus G. Right? D1, $1.5. P0, $25. G, 5.1%. Right? And this is the number, 11%. Right? So we give you 2 methods to estimate the cost of equity. Method 1, CAPM model. Method 2, dividend discounting model or DDM model. So this is a small question for you. So the result by the DDM will be equal to the result by the DDM. The result by CAPM will be equal to the result by the dividend discounting model? No, not really. All right. So the 2 models might give you different results. So which model you should use? Financial analysts need to make a decision. The first consideration is the data you have, right? If you don't have data, CAPM model, we need to have the data, right? If you don't have data, you might consider the DGM model, right? So the 2 models might give you different results, okay? Next slide, cost of preference share, right? So not only ordinary share, we have preference share. So when I say the preference share, I remember the point is constant dividend forever, all right? And this our perpetuity, a constant dividend forever. So this is our result. So cost of preference share is dividend divided by the share price. For me, this is not a new formula. Let me make a comparison. If we have the result for KOS, cost of ordinary share, this is our result. All right. Preference share is a special case of ordinary share. That means dividend is a constant. In other words, G is 0. So if G is 0, you can see we have the result, KPS, cost of preference share. Right. For me, this is my way to remember. So I consider a special case. G is 0. Constant dividend or dividend growth rate is 0. Then I have the result for preference share. All right. So example, cost of preference share. So your company has preference share that have annual dividend $3, current price $25. What is the cost of preference share? We use the equation here, 3 over 25. The answer is 12%. Okay. All right, we finished the discussion on cost of equity. Again, let me review the key concept for you. So cost of equity, we have cost of ordinary share, cost of preference share, right? So we have two types of share, ordinary share, preference share, okay? For ordinary share, we have two methods, DDM approach, right? Dividend discounting model. So this is our result. Or KPM approach. This is our result, all right? So you can use either dividend discounting model or KPM model. Right? For cost of preference share, this is my way to remember. So cost of preference share is a special case of ordinary share. That means dividend is a constant, G is 0. Right? So we have the result for KPS, cost of preference share. Right? Okay, so we finished the cost of debt and the cost of equity. You can see the next topic will be the most important topic for this chapter is a weighted average. Our final step is to add it up. Again, we use the weighted average to add it up. We will discuss the issue on Friday. Right. So we finished today's lecture. Before we go, let me show you the QR code. Right, student, the QR code is ready for you. Right. Thank you for coming. Enjoy the sunny day, and I see you on Friday.